In the latest episode of Jobless, Reincarnation, Norn's perspective is dived into as Rudy finds himself once again having to confront his past and deal with the various triggers that are around him. So to begin, let's talk a little bit about Norn and her take on all these things that are going on and why she's isolating herself. So, to begin, let's not forget, Norn is seemingly the middle child. Rudy is the boy of the family, and even though different cultures take different takes on the whole gender dynamics, when it comes to humans, especially like Paul, having a boy is the ultimate thing. And yet, we can see that Paul and Rudy's relationship, while it has healed a bit, it's still a little bit contentious. And yet, Paul still has a deep love for his firstborn and also the first and only male that is his seed, at least that he knows of. So with that in mind, even though Norn's first memory of Rudy is him walloping on her dad, their dad rather, because Paul gives Rudy such grace, it bugs her. And then when you add in Aisha into this whole situation with, her being so sweet, so gentle, so smart, and then you have Norn who is in the middle, who's not as sweet or smart as Aisha, who's a bastard child, and then you have Rudy who seemingly hates his father's guts, at least in Norn's mind, and yet here he is being so successful in schools, smartest around, popular, and has a reputation that gives him some type of social influence. A lot of it doesn't make sense to her. How can this person that she hates so much be so beloved by everyone, to the point that even folks like Rudy, this Supered, he even wants to go to bat for Rudy and try to stick up for him? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't connect, and it seemingly forces Norn to realize that she's the problem, and that's something difficult for her to manage. Never mind, while at school, she becomes Rudy's little sister, no matter who she's speaking with, whether it's a teacher or a peer, and living in his shadow while hating him in some type of capacity makes it so that isolating herself is really the only way that she can keep from having a full-on breakdown. Getting to the second topic, it's what Rudy originally thought was happening and how he took his little sister isolating herself. Now, as we've seen many times, back in Rudy's past life, he was a heavyset guy, he got bullied, and this led to him isolating himself. And previously, it was pushed that once Rudy isolated himself, his family just kind of looked at him funny, was possibly bullies alongside them. But in this episode, Rudy presents the idea that his older brother tried to help him, but after Rudy pushing him off so many times, his older brother gave up. So with that in mind, and knowing that he's a problem because Norn is living under his shadow no matter where she goes, whether it's at home with Paul, whether it's Aisha praising Rudy, she can't escape Rudy and kind of develop her own identity. He blames himself, and with that in mind, he comes up with a plan with Linnea, Sophie, Ariel, Basina to get into the girls' dorm room, which of course he can't really go in because he's a boy, and try to just be there for his little sister, even if she may hate him in some capacity. At the same time, he's trying to do things over again and be the type of family that, in this case, he actually got rather than what he wished he had. Which leads to the last topic, and that's just a resolution. And it seems, taking note of all the people that she loved and adored, saying Rudy's not as bad as you think he is, Rudy showing up when he didn't have to, and her realizing that the ways of him handling Paul, handling her, and other people, she painted him in a negative light because she hated him, not because he's a bad person. She decides to seemingly let those ill feelings go, and when her brother tries to just love her, she embraces him and cries into his chest. With this, it seems everything is healed, or at least both parties agree to move on without diving into the what happened. And so the following day, we see Norn greet both Rudy and Sophie. She's not necessarily smiles and giggles, but definitely more friendly than she's ever been. And from what it seems, Rudy once again has found himself confronting his past, maybe not talking about it with anyone, which perhaps is something he's overdue for, but he does think that if Nanahashi ever really finds the opportunity to go back to her world, he's gonna try to give her a message for his older brother to let him know that he's thankful for what he tried to do and potentially for the example he set. So, getting to the review section, top level highlight for us is just the showing that even though Jobless Reincarnation is very much about people communicating in order to get through what they need to, at the same time, not everything can be communicated, not everything needs to be communicated. Sometimes it's just about moving on. Like, for example, Rudy hasn't opened up to Nanahashi, Sophie, or anybody about his past life, and as you can see, it still is very triggering. It still haunts him deeply. For whether it's Nanahashi, who's somebody who's his friend, who I wouldn't say he knows closely well at all, but just her going to depression hit him. Then when it came to Norn isolating herself, again, hit him hard. And you could even argue the whole Eris thing after she abandoned him, that could have also been a trigger. And clearly, Rudy's going to be dealing with this for the rest of the series, since who can he talk to? Will Man God even let him talk to somebody about what he went through in the past and reveal that he's from another world? It's hard to say, but getting to the topic of Norn, I appreciate that they didn't have some long drawn out conversation where she was explaining everything that we saw. Instead, there was an understanding that she has her feelings, he has his, he wants to do better, she wants to do better, so rather than dig up all the skeletons and issues, they're just gonna have a moment, embrace each other, and move on. But with all that said, a part of me is kind of getting tired of Rudy's past being brought up in the way that it's being brought up right now. And that's mainly because it's something special when it's an every now and then type of thing, where you're kind of getting like a goalpost where you're seeing this is how far Rudy has come. He's triggered, but he's not isolating. Instead, he's communicating, or he's actually taking action instead of hiding away. But after Nanahashi, Aisha, Norn, I feel like we could take a little bit of a break from acknowledging not only Rudy's past, but also kind of making him, for lack of a better way, stagnant. For in my mind, there's so much going on with Rudy right now, or that should be going on, not wrong, that dwelling on his time as a heavy-set man who didn't have much of a life, we don't necessarily need that on a regular basis. I mean, let's we forget, Rudy has just gotten married, probably is having more sex than he ever had in his past life. He has his two little sisters, and yes, part of his story right now is about building relationships with them, but part of me feels like if you're going to dive into Rudy's past and kind of flesh it out, show his relationship more with his brother or his sisters or even his parents. I mean, give us some foreshadowing about how, with the way he treats his sisters, how he'll be as a father. Or even better, with Rudy having this grand reputation, kind of show us how he handles that way, from going for somebody who was pretty much a loser in high school to now be one of the most popular and also the strongest people in school. And lest we forget, wasn't he supposed to look into the mass transportation event? Once his erectile dysfunction got fixed, it seemed that whole studying to figure that out kind of stopped, and he just left Nanahashi to look into magical circles and all that, and he just dropped his interest. It doesn't make sense to me, but from what the next episode title is in terms of Turning Point 3, it seems this sort of lull that the show has kind of gotten into, where it's very much attached to Renault University and kind of doing side steps instead of moving forward, that may come to end, and I don't think it could have came soon enough. But overall, with the next episode being Turning Point 3, I can only hope the episode since this curve began were all to strengthen Rudy's foundation for what's coming. Because I think if I was to be fair, we can maybe do 1 or 2 more episodes about Rudy rehashing his past before this would officially start getting boring and feel like it's just giving us nothing but filler.